Hey, look at that little ship over there. He only makes like 5 billion a year, bro. I make 18 billion a year, bro. I only make like 9 billion a year. You're still twice as big as him, bro. Don't worry about it.
Well, hey guys, what are you talking about?
Shut up, you little bitch. I carry 5 times more passengers than you Shut the up. Never speak to me again. Nobody cares about you. Nobody makes YouTube videos on you. You are absolutely pathetic. Never, ever try talk to us again. What is happening, people? I hope that you enjoyed that little clip. Today we are going to be speaking about Norwegian Cruise Lines. These are a cruise line that don't get spoken about near as much as their main 2 competitors, Carnival or Royal Caribbean. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be the man who speaks about them. I've had a fair few people ask me in the comment section in previous videos to make a video on these guys, so let's go ahead and do it. Let's have a look at Norwegian Cruise Line, see if I think they're a good investment. We'll compare them quite heavily against Carnival just because, you know, they're obviously both in the cruise line sector and that's who we speak about the most. So let's just have a little look inside of the life of Norwegian Cruise Lines. But before we do that, please smash that like button for me. It helps the channel out massively. Subscribe and hit that juicy bell notification if you are indeed new around here, and drop me a comment with your thoughts on Norwegian or any other cruise line stock below. But anyway guys, let's get straight into it. Let's see what is the deal with Norwegian Cruise Lines. Just to kick things off, we're having a look at the list of largest cruise lines just so that we know where Norwegian fits into this list. So at the very top, obviously, Carnival Corp. We've spoken about these an awful lot on the channel. They are the biggest player by far in regards to cruise lines. And then in a very respectable 3rd place comes Norwegian Cruise Lines. We can see they carry 9.5% of all cruise line passengers, so still quite a big percentage. But when you go and compare that to Carnival, who has 47.4%, they're clearly just a much smaller cruise line. And they take in 12.6% of the overall cruise line revenue across all companies. Carnival has a 39.4%. So straight off the bat, they're the 3rd biggest, which is obviously awesome, but we have to keep in mind that it is a relatively small sector in general, and there is such a massive gap between Carnival and Norwegian in regards to passengers carried and revenue. Before we get into any of the specifics, we want to have a look at their max and 6-month stock chart. So having a look at their max stock chart, it's not painting the prettiest picture in the whole world, let's be honest. We have a look, very steady, very small growth. Then, in fairness, there was some absolutely massive growth. Keep in mind, cruise lines are very cyclical, so it's normal to see big jumps and big drops down. And there is that big drop down, bringing it back pretty much to its open price, very close to it. And then it was a nice bit of growth, and then there was some loss, and we've kind of just been in this purgatory. You know, we've been trading around $60 to $40 for a very long time, and then obviously we have just seen this massive dip, and they're trading all the way down as of today at $12. If we go and have a look at the 6-month chart, we can see they got down as low as below $8. So they actually went lower than Carnival did when Carnival first had that initial rough dip. They had a really nice rebound yet again, very similar to Carnival. They grew pretty much over 100% in a matter of weeks, and then they'd slowly dip back off a little bit, and now we're sitting at $12. But right off the bat, just looking at their max stock chart, there is absolutely nothing to get excited about. It's not one of those companies where I open up their chart, I get excited. It just looks incredible. You know, those companies that are just up and up and up. This is not one of them. So right off the bat, I don't really like it. If we have a look at Carnival's max stock, obviously they've been around an awful lot longer. And don't get me wrong, it's definitely not the prettiest in the whole world, but we can definitely see a little bit more of an uptrend. You know, here's some nice growth. We get some massive growth, we dip. It takes a while, but we see some more big growth. Then we dip, some growth, a dip. Ultimately, it has increased in value as the years have gone on. Now, again, keep in mind, very cyclical. If you're in this company, even when times start to get good, there's always going to be some really bad stages, even when the market's performing well as a whole. But right off the bat, I just don't like the looks of Norwegian's max stock chart. The next thing I want to mention is that they have never paid a dividend. The next thing I want to bring up is that they have never paid a dividend. Even when times were going really well for the company, they didn't reward their investors with dividends. You guys know me, you know I'm a long-term dividend investor. I love getting my dividends. So again, this is another point against Norwegian. If we're strictly comparing them against Carnival, Carnival has a history of paying a very attractive dividend when times are good. They've performed somewhat similarly in the stock market. You know, they've had relatively similar highs and lows, but Carnival is the much bigger player and they have paid dividends. So right off the bat, I don't see any reason why you would want to invest in Norwegian. But to be fair, in general, when you're investing in a stock like a cruise stock, It's not really one of those safe long-term dividend investments. It's a growth stock. That's what you're hoping for. You're hoping for hundreds and hundreds of percent on return in a matter of a few years. So them not having a dividend isn't the worst thing in the whole world, because they're not what we would generally look for in regard to a long-term stock regardless. So it doesn't matter too much. Just a few little quick pieces of information before we go and have a look at their individual debt levels, how long they can survive, everything along those lines. Their earnings per share has been climbing over time. Obviously, it's expected to be terrible for the next 12 months because of everything that's going on. Their sales growth has been quite shaky. It hasn't been great for the last 2 years whatsoever, and we can only expect next year to be absolutely terrible as well. Now, their net debt to EBITDA last 12 months was 3.54. Next 12 months projected is 6.75. Definitely not something we want to see. But it is not their fault whatsoever. It's just the situation we're in right now. And we can see Carnival has a very similar picture. Their next 12 months net debt to EBITDA is 6.74 compared to 6.75, so it's essentially the exact same. So, a few of the numbers. All of these numbers will be as of December 2019, so obviously things have changed since then, but this is what we're going to be working off for today. So December 2019, gross profit, 2.8 billion essentially. Total operating expenses of 1.6 billion, leaving them with a total operating income of 1.184 billion. Now let's compare the assets to the liabilities and try and decipher the chances of this company going bankrupt. So, total current assets at a measly 730 million. This here worries me an awful lot straight off the bat. An awful lot. Total assets, of course, paints a much nicer picture at 16.68 billion, but that is, of course, their ships, everything along those lines, the things that they can't liquefy quickly to survive. They only have 730 million of assets on hand, which is bad. Especially when we go and have a look at their total current liabilities, that is at 3.58 billion. That is horrible. And their long-term liabilities are just over 6.5 billion, leaving them with total liabilities of 10.16 billion. When we compare that to the total current assets, that's disgustingly bad. When we look at their long-term assets, if they have to sell the things like their ships, they're not going to be doing as much business. Their stock price, even if they survive, will fall massively because they won't be bringing in as much money. They will lose part of their share in the cruise line industry as a whole, and very quickly they could fall from being third to very much so towards the bottom. You may remember that not too long ago, Carnival took on nearly 6 billion in new debt to just try and survive the onslaught that is to come. That's 6 billion on top of the total assets that they already had. Here's just a nice little graph to have a look at. This blue line here represents their cash, and this red line represents their debt. Not a pretty picture. And here is what really worries me. Obviously, I just spoke about the fact Carnival took on new debt. Royal Caribbean also did the same, right? But as of right now, Norwegian hasn't announced a debt offering or revolver drawdown, and they have so little money in reserve. I don't understand what they're doing, why they haven't taken anything like this yet. And I seriously can't understand why their stock is not performing much worse than either Carnival or Royal. If they don't act on this extremely quickly, there is absolutely zero chance of survival. The only reason that Carnival and Royal Caribbean have a chance of surviving is because they've taken on all of this extra debt in the hopes that they'll be bringing money in again, hopefully in the next few months, hopefully towards, you know, the start or at the latest end of summer. I don't know what Norwegian is playing at. Maybe they're just accepting defeat. Maybe they're accepting that they're going to go bankrupt. But from an investor's point of view, this is the exact opposite of what you want to see. They're not taking any action. And if we don't see news that they have taken action within the next week or so, their chance of survivability is so low. It's mind-blowing. Unless they have something in the pipelines right now that is going to change everything, it's horrific. And it's important to remember as well that even if they survive, if they come out on the other side, this goes for any of these cruise line stocks, they're going to be in a horrific position. They're all offering cheaper cruises for next year to try and just, you know, raise some capital really quickly. They're offering people discounts, steep discounts that are going to have their next earnings, you know, their next few quarters of earnings are going to be down, not even because of the virus, but because they're selling their services so much cheaper than usual. They're also going to have a whole lot more debt, which means they won't have as much money to reinvest into the business or to pay dividends, anything along those lines. Their main focus is just going to be on getting that debt paid off. They'll have no room to grow for a little while at least. So keep that in mind when it comes to thinking about any cruise line stock. But to me, guys, honestly, I don't see a world where I personally will end up investing in Norwegian. They're so similar to Carnival in their maxes and their lows, but Carnival is handling the situation so much better, and they can definitely survive a much longer time because they're the biggest company without having extra money coming in. I really don't understand how the company is performing as well as it is in the stock market. It's performing more or less as well as Carnival and Royal Caribbean, and those two companies are actually taking action to get through this. I personally see absolutely no reason to invest in this company. Maybe I'm missing something really obvious. If I am, let me know in the comments below, because again, I don't know everything. I'm some random 22-year-old. I'm not a financial advisor. I just like stocks. But me personally, I'll be staying very, very, very clear of Norwegian, and that is for certain. I don't think there's anything that could make me invest in these guys. Maybe if they get to like 50 cents a share, maybe. But anyway guys, I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I hope that I was able to shed a little bit of light on Norwegian. I haven't done near as much research into them as I have the other cruise line stocks, just because at first look it's very bleak. I'm still not invested in Carnival or Royal Caribbean either. I've spoke about that in previous videos. I'll have them in the description box below if you want to check them out. Anyway guys, hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, please leave the video a like, and I'm going to see you all in the next one, and until the next one, peace.